Patient, Lucas Treadwell. Reason for sleep study, night terrors. Prescribing doctor, Dr. Ann Smith. Patient arrived at 7:30 p.m. on August 28, 2014. Patient was received through check-in at 8:13 p.m. Patient will be monitored by Dr. Kim Laurie and lab assistants Jason Sanders and Coral Walker. Patient begins stage 1 sleep at 10:34. Stage 2 sleep at 10:46. Stage 3 sleep at 10:50. REM 10:54. What am I looking at here? What is this that I'm reading? Asked Detective Roe Madison as she was looking at the computer monitor in front of her. A woman, young, in her mid-20s, brown hair, brown eyes. There didn't appear to be signs of blood on her white lab coat, Roe noted. She raised her hand like a small child in a classroom. Yes, you are? Asked Roe. I'm Dr. Laurie's... I'm Coral Walker. I was Dr. Laurie's lab assistant. I'm sorry to meet you under these circumstances, Ms. Walker, commented Roe, and Coral didn't reply. She was blinking back tears. Roe had a daughter this age and was feeling the urge to resist hugging her. Ms. Walker, can you explain what I'm reading here? Yes. It's the notes. It's the notes we take as a patient is undergoing their sleep study. Roe Madison then asked Coral what she had seen and if Coral could give her a statement, and Coral began to tell her the story of Lucas Treadwell's night terror sleep study. Lucas Treadwell began experiencing night terrors when he was 24 years old. He'd just started his new job as an ad executive with Brown & Brown. He'd finally been able to move out of his family home into a 2-story walk-up on the west side, just 4 blocks from his work. He was in a thrilling time of his life, beginning a career he loved, becoming independent, having stayed home to help care for his sick father until his sister could move in with her 2 children. He was seeing a bright-eyed university student who was both gorgeous and intelligent, plus she was maybe the funniest person he'd ever met. Lucas Treadwell was happy. Then, one night, he'd just fallen asleep when he began to hear the footsteps. Those footsteps. They start off far off in an empty hallway. Step, step, step. Then the echo bouncing off of the empty walls. Lucas wakes up, but he's paralyzed. His brain is doing its job to keep him from acting out his dreams, and it's not aware that he is awake. He feels a presence open his bedroom door. He knows she's there. A witch. She's hunched over long gray strands of hair, her lips bright red, her eyes as green as emeralds, and he hears her whispering, "I'm here, child. I am here," over and over again, as she straddles Lucas's chest. He can feel her body weight, hear her breath, feel it on his face. He is struggling with all of his might to move, to jump up, to throw her to the ground, to scream. Nothing came to him, and just as he felt her cold, thin hands covering his mouth, "I am here, child. I am here," he suddenly screamed and bolted out of bed, his breath quick and deep, his body shaking, his legs weak. He reached for the light switch as quickly as he could, and he turned the light on. There was nothing at all. His clothes, just where he'd left them, His covers the same. Nothing, except the door, was open, just a tiny sliver. This went on for weeks, not every night, but most nights. He was exhausted. He was afraid to fall asleep, and even on the nights when the dark witch didn't show, he would toss and turn. His brain on the lookout, his dreams filled with dread. But every morning the door was open, just a sliver more. He'd even went to a box store and replaced the knob with one that he could lock, and he did lock it every night, yet still, just a sliver more, barely noticeable, but he knew. He saw. He finally told his therapist, and when he did, he was relieved that she believed him and even had an explanation. Night terrors. But he explained to her that what he was seeing and hearing was as real as him seeing and hearing her right now. But the doctor assured him that it was not, that it's just a type of a dream. But the door, he asked. Perhaps you are walking in your sleep, she suggested. Lucas was nearly positive that he was not walking in his sleep, but what else could it be? Dr. Ann Smith arranged for Lucas Treadwell to take part in a sleep study. It was to be over the course of 3 days, so that they might catch him during the night terror and video him walking in his sleep. Well, started Coral. Lucas came in for his sleep study. Dr. Laurel explained how it would work. Told him to go through his normal bedtime routine. There'd be no sleeping medication because it can interfere with the results. He'd brought a book and a couple of magazines with him. He changed into some sweatpants and a t-shirt. He laid in bed and he read for a while. Me and Jason, kept an eye on his readouts. He was hooked up to electrodes to detect brain waves, heart rate, blood pressure, breathing patterns, the usual, and eventually he turned off the light and he fell asleep. Then, oh my God. I'm sorry. It's okay. Take a deep breath, whispered Ro, patting Coral on her arm. I know it's hard. Just take your time. Coral wiped her tears on her jacket sleeve. Ro handed her a tissue, pointing to her face, but she didn't think that Coral even understood the gesture. Anyway, within a short time his breathing became rhythmic and slower. His heart rate slowed down. His eye movement stopped, and then his heart rate spiked way up. His breathing was erratic. His brain waves were all over the place. It's not unusual for a person who experiences night terrors to go through these changes, but his were extreme and possibly dangerous. He wasn't moving, but when his heart rate wouldn't decrease and his blood pressure was getting dangerously high, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, you're fine, whispered Ro, trying as best as she could to calm the poor girl. Dr. Laurie called into the room over the intercom. She tried several times to call his name and to wake him, but he just wouldn't. So she decided to go in there. Okay, and then what? Asked Ro. I don't know. I can't explain it. She walked in. She closed the door. Then she walked over to Lucas. She began to sit on the side of the bed. And then, suddenly, there was blood flying everywhere. She was screaming for help. "And what did you do?" Ro asked. "Nothing. I mean, Lucas was still asleep. She was being cut to pieces and there was nothing in there. We were scared to death. Jason and I locked the control room door and called the police." Ro began. "You didn't see anything attack her?" "No," answered Coral. "Nothing." "And Lucas, what was he doing?" "Sleeping. He was asleep. He was still asleep when the other police officers got here." "Okay," said Ro. "Let me ask you one more thing. You said that the door was shut by Dr. Laurie?" "Yes. She shut it. The door's very heavy. We definitely heard it shut." "And neither of you nor anyone else went into that room?" "No, ma'am. We stayed right here." Ro noted that on her pad and then added, "However, the door was found slightly ajar."